Hello, good afternoon. I'm going to talk about the first two chapters of Amy Cuddy's book, Presence. Now, the first chapter is entitled, What is Presence? She talks about how difficult it is to define this word. However, she mentions that it is easier to express the lack of it. And she tells us that through a very good example of one of her situations when she had to tell an elevator pitch to one of her idols. She was in an elevator, which is kind of ironic, but one of her idols asked of her, "Tell me about yourself." And as soon as she got this question, she was completely terrified and couldn't even say a single word. Now, after that night, she kept on saying how she messed up and she could have done better, and this is what she could have said. But she found comfort by knowing that it happens to everyone. And especially an example she mentions is Denis Diderot, which is a French philosopher from the 18th century. And it happened to him when he had to give a presentation and he got stressed and mumbled his words. And he called it l'esprit escalier. That's where the word and the term elevator pitch comes from. Now, in this chapter, she says, and she tries to find a definition of what presence means. And she inspired herself from a couple of people. And an example, which is Rohan, says that presence is confidence without arrogance. And throughout all of these definitions, she finally got to choose one. And she defines it as the ability to comfortably deliver and express your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, and even your potential. Now, another aspect talked in this chapter is high self-esteem. Now, the reason why we put our faith into people with high self-esteem is because they express passion, confidence, and enthusiasm. These are very hard and difficult emotions to fake. She also mentions the synchronous self, which is all your senses coming into one to help you achieve what you want to. This links very well to the second chapter. And the second chapter is believing and owning your story. Now, this has to do a lot with presence, because when facing stress, you want to make others believe what you're saying. And so that comes with what I have just mentioned before, which is high self-esteem. And in this chapter, we talk about what is self. And it is divided through a lot of things, but it mainly talks about multiplicity, not singular, and also the ability to adapt and the ability to express through your thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and values. Now, this has been tested with a TSST test, which is there to maximize your stress levels. And it was done in the beginning by counting down by 13 from a very big number, like 2083. And while you do that, the judges would bark at you to go faster. And people would go through crazy amounts of stress. And two scientists decided that they would adapt this by putting two people through the same stress test. And one has to write a story that he did not care about at all. And the other would tell a story that meant a lot to him. And the results showed that after that, the person who wrote the very significant story did not go through any stress during this test. This was very significant, and it impacted the way people tell stories. Now, there's four very important key aspects to narrative storying that is mentioned by her in this book, which is agency, communion, redemption, and compromise. Now, the three first are showing that they have learned and they are working through people and going to higher mental states, positive mental states, which is very good. Now, I'd like to portray what I've mentioned in the first two chapters by explaining a story that is very close to my heart. Now, after leaving high school, which was in France, and wanting to leave my parents and be independent, I decided to go study in the UK. And it started very well, as I've traveled a lot. Going to new places is something that I love. So I started the first few weeks going out, having fun, meeting new friends, and I was completely happy with where I was. However, as time went on, it was very hard for me to keep track and stay in a good high mental state, because people were lying to me, people were cheating on me. It was very complicated situation where I felt, I think, the loneliest in my life. And how I found comfort is through my dad. Now, as a young child, I traveled a lot because of my dad's work, so I didn't feel as attached to him as with my mom. And I used to tell my mom everything. But when my dad was the one who was here for me when this very difficult time in England, he helped me turn my life around, change courses, change cities, change universities. It was very beneficial for me, and it helped me a lot.